Guys, welcome back to the Apex Files podcast presented by Racecomp Engineering. I'm Larry.
And I'm Drew.
And today we got a very special guest. I say that every time, but we do. He is...
How special is he?
We're all very special, Larry. Especially you.
Yes. He is, I would say, the face of probably the new VB WRX chassis, Rick Wilson of Dirty Racing Products down in Florida.
He's one of the first U.S. guys to track that car a lot. And he's active on all the forums and Facebook, Instagram. You'll recognize his bright orange WRX with a huge wing.
Yep, big wing, fully stripped, back half cage, race seats, T2s, big brake kit front and rear. It's got the tires. I mean, the car is, I think, probably the most well set up VB WRX in the US.
Yeah, and he's been doing a lot of work developing that car and that platform, learning a lot about the motor, suspension, chassis, things that work and what doesn't. So we have a good conversation with him, talking about all of that and more.
Yeah, so hope you guys enjoy. And if you like what you see, please like, follow, and subscribe. Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
All right, guys, welcome back to the Apex Files podcast presented by Racecomp Engineering. I'm Larry.
I'm Drew.
And today we got a special guest, Rick Wilson from DRP, Dirty Racing Products, down in Florida. Rick, how you doing today?
Yeah,
good, guys. How you guys doing?
Good. Yeah, we're a little cold here, but we're keeping on. For people that don't know you, can you tell us a little bit about Dirty Racing Products?
Yep. Because people in the Subaru world obviously have known your familiar face for a while. You had the Patriot theme drag WRX that,
right?
I believe at the time set a record, right? Back in the day.
A few, yeah. I mean, just a little about me and Rick Wilson with Dirty Racing Products. We started in basically 2012 as kind of a race team that got out of hand and turned into a business. At the time, we were actually racing pro rally, right? We ran rally as a family for like a decade. My dad drove, I co-drove, I drove. We started racing Ford Escort GTs, the little Escorts that have the Mazda motors in them. And then we moved on from there in 2013-ish to an open class STI, which being here in Florida, we had the car and my dad's in California. I was out here and we kind of saw that out here, there was nobody around who knew how to work on Subarus. So I had to start looking for some people, to help with this car. And that just turned into, we got to start our own shop. And that's kind of where it started.
What were the cars back in the day? Like big cars that you work on, like mainly more muscle cars, or was this always?
We started with hot rods. Yeah, old 60s, 70s, V8, a lot of LS stuff. My kind of start in the world of high performance was as an LS tuner. We're in like 1990, I guess it's not that long ago, but 2008, 2009, I was tuning LS cars and working on Corvettes and Camaros and all that stuff. And that was kind of my start into this world after the military. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right.
So,
what's the
somehow we went
transition
from V8s that are reliable to Subarus that aren't.
Yeah, I'm sure it was a big learning curve there, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was wondering what the transition from big V8 muscle cars to Subarus is like outside of the reliability issue.
No, it was great. I actually really enjoyed getting into Subarus. It's a really cool. It's a real niche market, as I'm sure you guys understand. There's a whole cult following with it. The people who love Subarus, and you meet all different kinds of people because Subaru has, of course, the WRX and the STI, but there's also a million Outbacks on the road, and those people love their Subarus too. And it's a whole different, group of people. Fortunately, down here in Florida, we don't deal with like the third outlet of the Subaru is the snow cars, which they're great for, but we don't have to work on them, which is a good thing. We don't have that.
Yeah, you don't have to deal with the rust and all that salt and stuff.
But no, it's been fun. It's every car that you push to its limit, whether it's on a drag strip, on a rally stage, or on a road course, is going to be unreliable at some point. It doesn't matter if it's a Corvette or a Subaru or an Evo or a Ferrari; they all going to break. So, you just kind of pick your poison and you try to specialize in on something and figure it out and make it as reliable as you can and have fun.
So when was the transition, or have you guys always done like track work stuff? Because I mean, for us, like we was knowing you as like the drag WRX, so I was always thought
Right.
You guys were doing straight drag cars, but obviously you do a lot of track.
No,
stuff
we
too.
basically we went from rally. We raced for years, my dad and I in pro rally, and as my dad got a little older, and we had a pretty big we had what should have been a really bad accident at Gorman Ridge Rally in California about 10 years ago, and it turned out to not be, but because kind of eye opening for us. So we kind of pulled back a little bit on the the stage rally stuff, and that's when I started really focusing on horsepower and kind of learning what we can and can't do with the Subarus. Started doing the drag racing, which after a couple years of struggles, as you guys know, became very successful for us. Put our name on the map for running really big races and racing all the people that everybody knows about, setting stock transmission records and setting I think at the highest point we were ever was third or fourth all time and fastest drag Subarus ever for manual trans Subarus, which was we took a lot of pride in that and took a lot of pride in always showing up to the big events and never complaining about racing Leroy or whatever big turbo V8 car we had to race that day. We were there to race, and we didn't care that we were in a Subaru, and we did well. It got to a point where we were, I kind of put it like we had learned 8 out of 10 of everything we could learn from a drag racing car, and we were at 9 out of 10 of where we could be as far as the best in the world. And it was going to cost enormous amounts of money to go from 8 to 10 or from 9 to 10.
Yeah,
and still maybe not even be
just a big jump.
Yeah, and still maybe not even be competitive because the V8 cars were making those jumps too. My dogs. And we got to looking around, and it was like, we don't know anything about this road racing stuff. This is a few years ago. Like, I could spend a whole bunch of money, and sure, we could learn that last little bit that we need to learn about drag racing. But to be real, there's no customers that are coming in wanting to go bottom eights in a Subaru. There are, but they're very, very few and far between. But there's tons of customers at these racetracks. And we didn't know anything about it. So a few years ago, we kind of stepped back from the drag racing and said, we can spend that money more wisely somewhere else and learn something totally new. And that's when the last 3 or 4 years have really been for us is just solely focused on, whether it's time attack or just DE guys or whatever it is, just learning how to make a car go around a racetrack.
So with the new 2022 WRX, the VB chassis, you've got your orange car that's pretty recognizable now. So from the beginning, the plan was this is going to be like a track car, and you're going to kind of use that as a platform to develop your track knowledge.
Yeah, because I think it's safe to say that I think you've taken the initiative of being like the first dedicated track VB WRX out there. Like, basically fully strips, you got the aero. I think car wise, you're probably the most extensive track WRXs right now
in the US. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I think so. It's actually kind of funny because I had, about 6 months before we got the VB, I was sitting around and I was like, I'm really missing I didn't have a fun car anymore because the Patriot was kind of just mothballed at that point. And I myself didn't have a car to sit around and think about in the afternoons. I was looking at another GTR. I own a couple GTRs, and I didn't have a GTR at the time. I was like, you know what? There's no more fun car than a third GTR. Why not? And I was sitting at my desk, and I was talking to Rob, who manages DRP for me, and he's like, yo, dumbass, you don't need another GTR. We need to order the 22 WRX. And I was like, oh, you know what? You're probably right. So the next day we, kind of started looking around on how to order one of those cars. And then it took 4 months or so for it to get in. And the immediate thought was, yeah, we're going road racing with this thing. I bought the car, we launched it out of the dealership. Like, there was no break-in. It was nice. It was road hard from the second I got the car. I think we got the car on like a Thursday. Saturday, it was at the track. And we, all four
Bone
of
stock
us
at the
that
time?
work at the shop, bone stock, we wanted to test it. So we took it to the firm, which is, we're very fortunate to have the firm only 30 minutes from us. So for testing cars and trying different things that we want to do, it's
That's awesome.
really, really beneficial. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that, yeah, like 2 days later, we were at the track and all four of us just beat the tar out of that car all day long to see what we could do with it stock, and quickly found, some limitations and found things we liked. And just from there, it just snowballed really quick. It's been a lot of fun.
The limitations of these cars, like I'm sure like to make even like the older chassis reliable, like there's certain things you need, like a aero separator, baffle oil pan, just like some common things to help keep the motor healthy and not starving from oil. Was that similar for this chassis as well?
In the beginning, no. I would say I got a solid year and a half before I found that I needed anything in this car as far as the engine was concerned. Tuning, there were tuning challenges. I won't sit here and say that we still have the original engine in the car, because we don't. But most of that was because, the first day we could tune these cars, we were tuning my car, because I'd rather learn this stuff on my car and not on a customer's car. And we were pushing boundaries and to see what we could do. And we found those limits. But I would say for the average consumer who wants to buy this car and go to the track and maybe not have, track tires on the car and not have the aero and not have everything I have on mine. I didn't have any oil starvation problems. I didn't have any of the, definitely none of the stuff that the BRZs are seeing. And now I will say as of now that we've taken 15 seconds off the car at the firm, which is a minute and a half lap, so the car's considerably faster. Now we're starting to see off throttle oil problems. And IAG's addressing that for us. So we'll have something real soon to fix that. But for the average guy who goes to the track, no, not like the old cars. It's been great.
Yeah, it's just basic, probably super sports or 4S's, some decent pads, brake fluid, be good to go.
Yeah. The car will be fine. We've got quite a few customers out doing it that aren't seeing the issues I'm seeing, but again, they're not doing what I'm doing either. So
yeah, right.
Yeah. I think I think a lot of people have been like scared to track their car, like bone stock and stuff, with kind of some of the horror stories out there. But you're right. Like if you're not running super sticky tires and aero too, and pulling huge G's, you don't have that much to worry about. Just get some brake pads and fluid and don't be a huge idiot, and you're going to have a good time. So yeah. What are some of the things that
the BRZ kind of scare people too?
Yeah.
So
and that may or may not be a little bit more legitimate of a concern.
Yeah. I'll be honest with you guys about that one. I've been to the track a lot in the last year, and I have seen a lot of BRZs on the track, and I've seen some very seriously built BRZs on the track. And teams fielding multiple BRZs in sprint races and whatnot, and they're not having a problem. But we've all seen that there is something out there. I can say the WRX does absolutely not do what the BRZ does, because the BRZ problem is under throttle. And I've got Motec in my car with all the oil pressure stuff. I've never seen a pressure drop in the WRX under throttle ever. So
nice. So hopefully that's some more reassurance to people out there who want to get out there to go and get out there and drive your car.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid.
Yeah, no, I'm not concerned about it.
Yeah. So your progression with this car, you've gone through multiple things: suspension, added big aero. Was there a big learning curve to those new parts?
For us, yeah, for two things. For one, as a shop, because we hadn't really built something like that in the past, and two, because Subaru decided to change everything on this car, that nothing fits. In the past, if you had a WRX and you wanted brakes, you just pulled some brakes off an STI and put them on your car, and it worked. That doesn't work here. Obviously the ECU had to be completely remapped. The suspension completely changed. Nothing from the old cars goes on these cars. As you guys know, the strut mounting points are different. They changed the sway bar mounting points. They've changed everything on this car. Which, better or for worse, just made our job harder. And when the VA first came around, we were pulling coilovers off the GR cars and going to the track or doing whatever we wanted to do because it all works. Well, this car didn't work. So so not only did we have to learn what stuff works to get around the track quickly, because we needed to learn that, but we also needed to learn, what's different about this car. And now that we've found these problems, how do we find solutions? So it's been a fun challenge for sure.
But with this car, have you seen an uptake in business with, Subaru, like newer Subaru owners?
Yes. As the big thing that was released, because the car was out for almost a year before we could tune it. So prior to that, there wasn't that many of these things coming around. But as soon as, Cobb figured it out and got that together and gave us a solution that works with the modern climate of the EPA and stuff that we're in, then for sure we're seeing more and more and more. I had, yesterday we have 3 bays at DRP, and yesterday all 3 bays were 22 WRXs. So it was pretty cool.
Like in terms of just like the platform in general, like it's got, for me, like the how wide it is, a track width, and like the wheelbase, it's not something that you think about like when you're looking at, the first press pics of the car and stuff like that, but it is something that you kind of do feel. So like things like that, like how do you, what do you like about the platform in general, especially on track?
Oh, the first is the engine. I mean, the engine's just better.
It is smooth.
The turbo is better. Everything about the horsepower delivery, about the engine's better. I think it's the best motor Subaru's ever done. The chassis, it's stiff without being uncompliant, if that makes sense. Maybe it's the extra width and the extra length, but the car feels good and solid, but it doesn't give you that feeling by also beating the crap out of you. Like it just, it feels like a good, solid, well-built car. And on track, it gives you a lot of confidence because, it's planted, it's stable, and the body isn't twisting all over the place like the VAs kind of do. So yeah. And, another thing a lot of people don't think about a lot too is the ABS. I don't know what Subaru has changed in the ABS system, but I like it. It's really good. It's very predictable, compared to the older cars.
The older cars, ABS was terrible. Going back to like the GD days, it was like dangerously bad. And it was like, I think there was like actually a recall on like the early bug eyes and stuff because the ABS was so bad.
I've actually...
I'm sorry, go ahead. I was saying, you have a big brake kit on your car as well, right?
Yeah. I have a AP Racing kit. Basically, it's the same kit you would get on a say a C7Z06. It's the same setup.
Is it front and rear or just fronts?
Front and rear, yeah.
Front and rear, nice. Okay.
Yeah, we had to I sent the car to Essex Auto up in where are they, in Virginia?
Carolina,
North Carolina.
Yeah, Carolinas, yeah.
Yeah, we sent the car to them, and they had it for about a month, figuring out how to put the brake kit on this car because all the geometry was changed. You can bolt the old calipers onto this car, but the spacing of the rotor is completely different. So even though you can put the old calipers on the car, there's no rotor that fits. So they had to develop the whole kit on this thing, and that was another process of not having the car for a while, but it was worth it for sure. The car brakes, it's amazing.
Is that kit available to purchase for people?
Yes. No. Yeah. We have it available. We've sold a few of them for sure.
Nice. So what or do you have any big plans for the car coming up next season? Like I think the car is pretty stout as it is right now, but do you have anything else in the works minus what IEG is working with
right now we just picked up another sponsor, actually Cosmic Motorsports out in Texas. Sent us a turbo for the car. It's an Arginari turbo that they have worked with Arginari and brought to the market. I've been racing the car this whole last year in TT4, which basically means, if you're not familiar with those, or the people listening aren't familiar with that, it was limited to the NASA people are going to shoot me because this is probably wrong. But roughly speaking, I had to be like 3,500 pounds minimum weight, and I couldn't make more than, I think it was 320 average wheel horsepower. It's about the ballpark of TT4 for this car. and that was running a 200 treadwear tire. We've always run RT660s on the car just because they last and they're inexpensive. And I was learning, so we didn't need to spend big money on tires. The goal this year is to move the car into TT3 where it's kind of actually should be. And so we have the turbo, so we should be able to take the average horsepower up to 420 with the current configuration of the car, as long as I keep the 660s on it or the 200 treadwear tires. And I don't know that's going to make the car any more or less competitive, because it's really not competitive with the top peak cars that are in those classes. But it'll certainly make it more fun, and lap times will come down, which is good. And we'll learn some more about what this motor can handle. We know it can make 420 wheel, but can it make 420 wheel for me beating on it for 20 minutes straight? Find out.
And you have the transmission part taken care of. You have STI trans in there, correct?
Yeah. I did the STI trans. Just for the internet, because everybody says, I broke the transmission and that's why I did it. The stock trans didn't break. I sold that trans to somebody who did break their trans. But it was just time because the open diffs weren't cutting it.
For the track and the power you got, that makes sense. Are you able to get a lot more revs out of the motor, safely go past the 6,000 RPM red line?
So that's something that I haven't talked about. And I don't know that I haven't told really anybody, but I will say no. The car beyond, okay, so yes, we can get more revs out of this motor than factory. The factory red line is really low. It's like 6,200. We were pushing the car on track at 64, 65 without problem. We turned it up to like 7 because why not? Let's go find out. And we found pretty quickly that the factory valve springs are way too weak for that. And we weren't controlling the valves properly. And it beat the seats back into the heads, actually, and caused a loss of compression. So, which was great, because that's what we wanted to see. That we're just looking for that limit, right? So we took the motor out, took it all apart, rebuilt the heads, put new seats in, stock valves because there was no aftermarket valves available. But we kind of retrofitted 2-liter WRX GSC valve springs into the thing, because what we were seeing is it only had like 40 pounds of seat pressure, which when you put 20 pounds of boost against isn't very much. So we put some 2-liter GSC springs in it and took the spring pressure up to about 90 pounds. And now with the stock turbo, I don't really rev it past 68, 69 just because there's nothing left. But it hasn't been an issue at all anymore. And I have certainly misshifted and seen well into the 8s and not had a problem with it. So I think we've got that problem solved. But again, that's just one of those things that it wouldn't have happened if we weren't looking for that issue. Every time we go to the track, we'd inch the rev limiter up a little bit to find where we're going to find the problem. And we did at like 69, $7,000. That's where the problem started.
Yeah, that was like, we had a press car, and like you said, we like really liked the car and like felt a big difference in the chassis and the platform. And a lot of like the initial reviews are like, it was kind of soft and didn't really feel quite as nimble and all stuff like that. But like, we're driving these cars knowing that we're gonna like change the shocks, we're gonna do coilovers and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So we're not like necessarily as concerned with like that part of stuff. But for me, seeing that 6,000 RPM red line was really disappointing. So
especially as good as first gear feels in this car. Like when you're just creeping and you hit it in first gear, it feels better than any Subaru ever. But you better grab second really fast. You get that feeling for just a moment, and then you're like, oh, well, there goes that.
Yeah. I mean, just screwing around with the car, like accidentally bouncing off the red line a lot. Like I don't do that very often. And
especially because the last car was like 68 or 69 from the back.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and this car is it's over square, right? It's a more bore than stroke, so it should rev, and it does feel like it wants to rev. It just runs out. So
yeah, for sure,
that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So do you have any desire to get back into rally, either with obviously not your track car, but a WRX of some type?
No. If you asked me in my heart would I like to do that, absolutely, because rally was amazing, met some amazing people, and you get to go to some really amazing places. But the unfortunate reality as a owner of a shop in the United States is there's no money in rally. And I've never ever had a customer call DRP, as much racing as we've done, and say, I want you to build me a full stage rally car. Shops out in California will get those because rally's more prevalent out there, or shops in the Northeast, I'm sure, get those. But down here, it's just not something that is economically feasible, I guess is the way to put it.
Do you have any plans, or to go out to like any grid life events or global time attack events? Stuff like that for next season?
That is my goal for this season. I spent the whole last year and a half kind of working through NASA's licensing process for time trials, because it is it's difficult to get through. I got that license 2 events ago. And I kind of figured that if I was going to go do grid life or GTA that doesn't really have a licensing program, that I needed to go through somebody's licensing program before I just show up and do that and run some TT events. So anyways, that was my goal for 23, was to really just continue to develop the car, develop myself as a driver, get that license done. And then this year, my plan is to experience 1 to 2 events of each, like 1 to 2 GTA events, 1 to 2 grid life events, and get a kind of a feel for the 2 of them. With the idea of 25 picking one to run a whole series, run the whole year.
Nice. Okay.
And then we'll continue to do, of course, the NASA stuff, just because it's everywhere around us, and we've got to be at the track. And we'll continue. The firm here in Florida has a really cool TT program. We actually won the TT4 championship this year out there, which was kind of fun. And it's a real laid back way to kind of get your feet wet in time trials and experience open passing and experience what it's like to be out there with guys trying to make flyers and be out of their way. And it's a lot of fun. So yeah, we have a lot of plans for this year. I'm still not taking the wins for us in 2024 will come in lower track times and the car getting better, and that's the developing of the car. I'm not ultra concerned if we go to grid life to this year and we take last. I don't care. That's not why we're there.
Yeah, it's more personal business and getting finding stuff about the car limitation. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and also navigating the rule sets too, because like to set the car up to be competitive at NASA puts me in track mod at grid life, and the car is probably 200 horsepower short of track mod at grid life just because of the different rules. If I set the car up for track mod, then when I go to NASA, I've got to run the Z06s, and that doesn't make sense either. So it's kind of like in grid life or GTA is the same way. Like none of their rule sets make sense with each other, which is kind of unfortunate. Mm-hmm. And it makes like, okay, I want to go on Hoosiers to run NASA, and that would make me faster. Any day I spend learning how to be fast on Hoosiers at NASA hurts me at grid life, where I can't run Hoosiers.
Right. So you're limited at 200 tread wear, right? So you gotta learn. It's unfortunate that it's that way, but it's the reality of it, right? They all have their own rules. A lot of people that run grid life or global time tag, they really don't run anything else, right? Their cars are very specific to the club TR or the street mod. You know.
And setting up your car for Hoosiers is different than setting up your car for RT660s and stuff like that too. So that it's a choice. It's like a commitment, really. So
and there's so much NASA. Like grid life is, I think right now, in my opinion, it's got the most press behind it. Maybe at least in our world, in the Subaru world, you see a lot of it.
Yes. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I want to go do that, but to hurt my car for the 6 events I can do with NASA this year, to benefit the 2 events I do with grid life is like, I don't.
It's not worth it.
No, it's not that it's not worth it. It's just frustrating to figure it out. That's all, I guess. I like my car right now, and some of the rules don't make sense to me. Like my car, I've had multiple people say that grid life, my car would be great in street class the way it sits. To enter street class, I would have to take the wing off the car. And I don't ever understand how taking an $800 wing off a car makes me legal to race in anything. Like what is, I have a $10,000 Motec in the car, and that's okay. But my 9 Lives Racing wing, that's not okay. And some of those rules, just show up and race. I don't care. So what's going to end up happening is I'm going to continue to run NASA this year. When I do grid life, I'm going to run track mod, and I'm going to show up and race. And we'll probably be last, and I won't care because I'm doing what is important to us. And then in 2025, we'll take a hard look at what we want to do and where we want to set the car up. And hopefully by 2025, the horsepower will be there to be competitive at those things with this car. It's not quite there yet.
Well, real quick, I think one of the last things we want to touch upon is I think halfway through the season, Miles has sent you a set of T2s.
Correct.
How are those been on the car? What was your experience with them? Was it a big learning curve? I mean, but I think at the time you had done multiple other things to the car as well, along with the new suspension. But so give us your feedback on that.
Kind of the path of the suspension of this car was obviously we raced it for a while stock because there was no suspension that would work. We're a big dealer, so we sell a lot to street cars, and so they sent us a prototype set from the very beginning, and we kind of worked with them, giving them the measurements and getting everything on the car that worked. But it was a very street car setup. They were 8K springs. It was certainly better than what we had, but it certainly was not set up for what we wanted. Right? These were street coils. I started looking around at different companies that we could work with to develop some real suspension for the car. And I saw that, in fact, it was kind of interesting. I was just looking, I looked at RCE, I looked at a couple other manufacturers, and I saw RCE had I think at the time on their website, it had a picture of a 22 and it just said basically coming soon. And I was like, oh, coming soon. So I started talking to Miles, and they didn't actually have something quite ready for the car yet, but he said, I have something I can put together and make work. And he sent us the set, and, we went through a couple iterations of top hats and stuff in the front to get the height right and things like that. Got that figured out. Different spring rates. And I think right now we're at 10 and 12, if I remember right.
Nice.
And it's been just a massive improvement in the car. Just night and day difference to have. It was interesting for me because I didn't really know better either, because this is, like I said, I'm new to this too. So, felt better than the stock. And I was like, it's pretty good, man, And then I put these RCEs on. I was like, oh, okay. Like there's a whole nother level I wasn't even aware of. The interesting point of the thing I like to tell Miles is there's a section at the firm that's some S's in the back of the track. And the fastest line through that is basically you just abuse the curves and you make those S's a straight line. I couldn't do it when the car was stock. I certainly couldn't do it with it would just bounce me all over the place. Like I couldn't do it. And I put the RCEs on, and I was out there. I have a driver's coach, Brian Rosati. He's a really fast driver in NASA TT, and he's like, "You're kind of being a word that I won't say on the air. You need to take those curbs." I'm like, "Man, I can't. I know what that feels like." He's like, "No, you got good suspension on here. Just do it." And the first time I took those curves with the RCEs on the car, I was like, "Oh my God." It was like they weren't even there. The car stayed settled. The car just did what it needed to do. It was great.
Awesome. Nice. Have you spent a lot of time, they're no Tarmac 2s, two-way adjustable, learning how to use the two adjustment knobs? Have you been working with Miles on that?
Yeah.
Or, okay.
To be honest, we haven't had to do a whole lot. We've kind of,
okay, cool.
Miles told me where to set them from the beginning. And again, a lot of this is me not knowing exactly, probably giving the best driver feedback, but I would say we haven't had to mess with it too much. We have certainly decided that on the next go around, we're going to go stiffer springs. And we have been talking about making some adjustments to keep the back. The only problem I have with the car is kind of keeping the back end under the car coming out of a hairpin under hard throttle when the back end wants to come out. Instead of being smooth, it's a little bit bouncy. Maybe bouncy is the wrong word, but I can hear it in the RPMs, like the car's in waiting.
Okay.
There's one spot in all the racetracks I've been to that this car does this. So it's like, it really doesn't matter. But
yeah,
I mean, I could solve the problem with a little easier on throttle, but it's fun. You want to smack the gas back in.
Yeah. You've got real diffs too. So that can change things too. So that's cool though. That's fun.
And that's we've had these on now we've had them on at Barber, we've had them on at Sebring, I've had them on at Roebling, and I've had them on at the firm. And this one specific corner at the firm is the only place where it happens. And it's basically 25 miles an hour coming out of a hairpin, and I'm stomping back on the gas.
What was Sebring? I mean, how's the car at Sebring? Because we know, I mean, that's bumpy all the way through, right? That track, and even talk to pro drivers, so like they spend so much time on setups for the car just to get the suspension right.
Well, when it was stock, it was almost not fun because that track's really bouncy. On it was not fun. On the RCEs, it was like a whole new track. I was able to take lines like when you come out of turn 1 at Sebring, there is you want to track kind of out to the outside of the turn, but if you do, there's a nasty bump right there.
There's a dip.
Yeah. I would have to stay inside of that before. Now with the RCEs and the way Miles has it set up, I can actually use that portion of the track and it doesn't upset the car at all.
Nice. Awesome.
Turn 17, if you've ever driven on Sebring, that's just a roller coaster. As you're in the turn, and it's a real long turn, the car is just
long.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the last turn. You're just doing this. And
holding on and praying.
It was not very confidence inspiring until I had these coilovers on the car, because now I keep the wheels on the ground when I go through there. Nice. And I'm not seeing. I could actually see in the logs with the old suspension where I would lift a right rear in that turn or on those bumps, not really in the turn. You'd hit the bump, and with the open diffs that I had in the car before, I could see the RPMs.
Yeah,
jumping up every time I'd hit one of those bumps. No, it doesn't happen anymore. All the wheels stay on the ground, so that's where they should be.
I'm thinking in my head about grid life classing, and I'm just going to confuse myself. So I'm gonna just pretend there's a world where that makes more sense for now. So never mind that.
Well, ultimately, here's how it works: is grid life. The car should make a couple hundred more horsepower, and it should go in street mod. That is probably the most competitive class at grid life right now. And there's restrictions in street mod. I mean, I'd have to go backwards on some of the stuff I've already done to the car to be in that class. And the car right now, even with those things that are illegal in street mod, is considerably slower than a street mod car. So none of it makes sense. Track mod, I'm also going to be considerably slower than, but the rules are,
it's
good for what I've already done.
Now.
Yeah, so if I'm gonna be slow in either class, I'd rather not have to change my car.
Yeah, have fun.
Agreed. Well, Rick, thank you very much again for coming on. But people can find you Instagram or your company page, Dirty Racing Products.
Facebook.
You want to give a shout?
Facebook, Dirty Racing Products. Instagram, Dirty Racing Products. DirtyRacingProducts.com. I got a big website. We're very approachable. We love talking to people about going to the track, even the drag racing stuff. I still take care of people with that and try to pass on the knowledge.
Do you still have the Patriot themed WRX?
It's gone. No, okay. It was one of those things. I thought I'd never get rid of that car, but the longer I saw it just sit there, I was like, I'm never doing that again. So it lives on. That car lives on inside of many other cars now.
Yeah, nice. Well, cool, Rick. We appreciate your time. Thank you very much, and I'm sure we'll be catching you soon. We're always following you in your journey, so we love what you're doing.
Awesome, man. Thanks you guys. I appreciate the opportunity.
Yes, absolutely.
See ya.
Thank you.